All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you were upset about what happened at the end of the Chiefs-Bengals game, or maybe if you're ecstatic and you're elated because the Chiefs found a way to win there on a roughing the passer that's led to a game-winning field goal, but this guy here, I promise you tonight on Sportswire Radio, this is a guy that we've gotten to know. We've seen him on our streams here, show after show after show, and he does his own hosting here. He's the host of the Beer and Opinions podcast, which has over 660 subscribers on YouTube. You can also catch him because he is one of the premier wrestling stars for the Sadistic Wrestling Federation. And they're going to be back in action 4 weeks from today. So if you have a Super Bowl hangover, you're waiting for the USFL, who knows what waiting for, you'll definitely want to tune in and find out why here about the Sadistic Wrestling Federation. So we're going to get right to it. So with that, without further ado here on the Sports Report, number one global sports show wrestling star here from the Sadistic Wrestling Federation. He is the Psycho
Thank you for introducing me.
Morgan. The Psycho is here.
Hell yeah.
How you doing, my friend? I feel like I've known you for a while, but yet I haven't known you because I've always seen you pop up on at least one of my streams on Sportswire Radio for many, many months now. So I guess nice to formally meet you.
Yeah, you might need to file a police report for stalking.
I actually know somebody that's doing that currently. Well, it's not really partially a joke, so I'll have to say I'll plead the fifth on that one. But obviously, good to be with you, my friend. And boy, there is a lot to talk about here because, I'm glad we scheduled it this time because was I going to dwell on the Chiefs-Bengals ending? Was I going to go as I bought a new phone and I was telling you off the air, I got 2,600 plus contacts and I couldn't sync them from the old phone to the new phone. I'm only up to 400 and maybe screw the rest of them. But set the tables for us in the meantime, the Psycho, about your role coming up here next month, February the 26th, at Sadistic Wrestling Federation, because I got a feeling there is going to be some sparks flying and some in the Texas area.
So, about 6 months ago, I was buried alive by the Super Danger with help. And so I'm back now.
Good.
My soul's been bought out of the Forest Lawn Cemetery, and I've come to collect a debt in the form of punishment to the Super Danger in a Satsuma street fight.
Well, you've got a lot of motivation. I mean, and I want to give a shout out to Mr. Matt Royale over from the Wrestling Appreciation Society, who's tuned in from all the way in the UK, and it's just about 4 a.m. there. So, Matt, I certainly appreciate you tuning in there. But I got to ask you, for those who are listening and watching, I mean, how did you recover from the big buried alive? I mean, I think about those days when The Undertaker was buried alive, and it took him all that time and all that strength to rise up. And, I mean, how did you pull this off here, the Psycho?
I mean, God, I was just hanging out in a cemetery. So, I mean, I had
actually, little small known fact, I actually live across the street from a cemetery, so I'm very comfortable in that element. So I could tell you a thing or two about that.
So here in Sadistic Wrestling, we have some crazy lore. Okay, when you die, you go to Forest Lawn Cemetery, and you can be purchased out. Forest Lawn Cemetery, you can make a deal to leave Forest Lawn Cemetery, and you then have to pretty much just do whoever let you out. You kind of gotta be their patsy for a while, and but I was let out, and therefore so I'm just here for my revenge now.
So how have you liked hanging out there in the Forest Lawn Cemetery?
I mean, It was a little too quiet, to be honest. A little too quiet. I mean, I did practice my singing a little bit. I don't know if you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I practiced. I did a little melody, a little song. Yeah.
What did you? I almost have to ask. I mean, dumb question. What did you attempt to sing there, Mr. Psycho? You don't seem the singing type, but
I was there and I was singing. I had a bad day, got buried alive, sucker beat in his ass. Now he's making me cry. and I sing that song.
Well, yeah, I guess there was a lot of bad days, right, when you buried alive. I mean, 'cause it's
Exactly.
basically just you. What is it? Just you and dirt, and I guess grass, and I guess maybe your next door neighbors would be those who've rotted and decomposed. I guess would be fair to say. No?
Exactly, and it was uncomfortable.
Did you talk to the dead people?
I made love.
Oh well, I'm going to certainly plead the fifth on that one because we are a family station.
Okay,
But I mean,
I said
so
made love.
okay, well, February the 26th is coming up here, and so I've got to imagine after what happened to you, then you've got a lot of motivation to settle some scores here.
Oh yeah, yeah. I plan to tear this man apart limb from limb, in whatever means necessary.
So let's talk about then here. Obviously, it's been a few months, and there's been a lot of thinking. Obviously, because that's all you do is think, right? In a cemetery, you think, and you have a lot of time to think. So you have to have been very motivated on figuring out what you need to do to basically come back and learn from what happened to you, which led you to being buried alive. Is that something fair to say that there was a lot of thinking in this process to where we are and to come back here and settle some scores coming up on February the 26th over at Sadistic Wrestling Federation?
Oh yeah, just watch my surroundings. The man is obviously in cahoots with other wrestlers. He is the acting day-to-day GM of the show. And
who is the acting GM for our friends over at Sadistic
so the
Wrestling Federation?
acting, the day-to-day operations guy is the Super Danger. The owner is Rich Fortune, and Richard Fortune was evading the IRS, and so he was out in Tahiti while all this things were occurring that led to me getting buried alive. But
Well, I want to give a couple of shout outs while I do that. At first, I want to give a shout out to Chris Bizet of the Liftoff Jets and the Talking Rivals, who's liked our post here on Facebook, and he's actually a Philadelphia Eagles fan, so congratulations to him. And also Anastasia Risnia, who I know, Raznia, I believe. I'm trying to get her name right. This poor woman has a name that I can't pronounce it because I'm from New York, right? And she is certainly here watching with us, and I told her I was a little busy today because I was trying to, again, sync 2,600 contacts, and I only synced like 400 important ones. So, but shout outs to them. But I mean, let's talk about Super Danger in a second, because obviously he's the man in charge at the moment. Are you concerned about kind of the nepotism and the politics that may play in here that could lead once again to your demise on the 26th of February because Super Danger is, for all intensive purposes, here in charge at Sadistic Wrestling Federation?
Hold up, though. So Rich Fortune is back. He returned, and that's how
he's back.
I've been granted the match.
Okay. So Rich Fortune is here to kind of give you a fair shake, more or less.
Oh, yes.
And how do you feel now that Rich Fortune is back? Can we expect more of a level playing field for you and others that are aligned with you here in the Federation?
I believe so. See, Rich Fortune, he does not like anything that interferes with his money. And guys like me, guys like, some of those top guys, he doesn't want to see them slacking off in cemeteries. He wants them in the ring battling. So as long as we're making him money, he seems to be content.
Well, I think that you guys are definitely making the Sadistic Wrestling Federation and Mr. Rich Fortune a lot of money because they call him Rich Fortune. But I mean, for those that are watching and listening, they're hearing about the Sadistic Wrestling Federation for the first time. I mean, talk about some of the beginnings of it, where you guys are located, and just some of the different things which has made the company such an interesting place here in the wrestling world.
So we are located in the Southeast Texas area. We did our first live show in December. We sold about 165 tickets, I guess, at a little at a little restaurant, and I know it's like $5 a ticket, but still. So,
hey, you know what? There's a lot of companies that do backyard wrestling, and they just have it in somebody's yard, or if they're lucky, they have a ring, or they set it up almost like a mattress, and they put like the little mats outside. But you guys sold 165 tickets. I mean,
yes.
That's a lot of tickets there. I mean, we cover professional wrestling, and there's only a handful of companies I could say that we cover that would probably have sold more tickets than that. So that's very impressive to sell 165 tickets.
We it was at a restaurant, and so like it did some of that numbers may be people that came to just eat, but but
Well, I'll make you chuckle. Well, I'll make you chuckle that there was an old. I don't know if you ever remember the old UWF, the old if you ever saw the Dark Side of the Ring with Herb Adams, and one of their, I believe it was the last show the company had. They wound up booking it at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, and you'd think, all right, they're going to sell 15,000, 20,000 tickets. They had a number of big stars on. I think Psycho Sid was on the card. I think King Kong Bundy might have just before he came back to the then WWF, and they sold fewer tickets than what you guys sold.
Jesus.
So
yeah,
you never know.
It was like the parking lot stayed packed. People did leave, but then more people showed up, and they caught the main event of the show and things like that. So, and there's a whole bunch of kids, like so all these people that came, they had like a crap ton of kids, and so I think it just added to everything, and it was just a crazy show, crazy for our first time. I think our next event, I think, only can hold 65 people because it's like in a coffee shop, but.
So how is that? So before I get to Matt Royale, I mean, walk me through that then. So is it like outside the coffee shop? I mean, how is this
It's
going to
be
be?
inside. That's why it's 65 people. At some point, probably when it's like less rainy. Right now, it's like the weather's horrible right now, but we are going to be doing it in downtown probably.
I'm curious about that because I'm wondering what the weather is. Because believe it or not, in New York, it was a balmy about 53 degrees here today. What was it like in Southeast Texas? Because I might have a feeling that it's been warmer here in New York from what you were telling me off the air than it's been in Texas.
Well, no, that December show, it was around 30 something degrees, 30.
Wow.
Maybe high 30s, probably high 30s, low 40s. But
are you used to getting that normally where you are?
Sometimes. But that was definitely it was that we were not expecting it to be that cold. but we powered through it anyways. We powered through that stuff.
I would hope so, right? Because you have no choice. And let me come back here to Matt Royale. It's nice to see new companies being founded. Let's make this world we love greater than it's ever been. Got to start small and work up. Now, this company, from what you told me, first show took place in December. We have another first live show. And then we have one coming up here in February. So what is the game plan? Do we expect monthly shows when the weather's warmer, or do we expect bi-monthly? If for those that are listening and watching it, if you could answer those details, what do you expect for the company in terms of how the setup will be, in terms of how often it'll run?
So we are expecting monthly shows. It really depends on the venues and our connections right now with the venue people and how we present ourselves. Like right now, we're just trying to prove that we can set dates and make them and show up and make sure people have fun and whatnot when they come to our shows. And as long as we can prove that to these people, it'd be hard for it should be probably make it better for us to be continuously booked.
I can tell you right here, we're looking forward to, if you'd like, we're looking forward to promoting this coming up here between now and the 26th. So if anybody that's aligned with you, we'd love to have them on Sportzwire Radio because this sounds like something that's right up our alley here. This is, for all intensive purposes, a new company when it comes to live shows. So when it comes to something like this, and we'll get to your journey in a second to where you are right now, the Psycho, but does this motivate you? Does this inspire you, saying, hey, you know what? We sold 165 tickets and the weather was lousy. We have another show coming up in February. Weather's probably going to be but we're still going to have a little bit of a crowd. And I'm sure when the weather gets nicer, when we turn the corner to, let's say, April, May, and beyond, we're probably going to be outside. We're probably going to get, back to that level of amount of tickets that we sold the first time. So, as a performer and somebody that's going to be a part of some big shows coming up, does this give you extra motivation knowing that there's going to be a crowd of people that's going to pay to watch you live in some form?
Yes. Yes, it does. What's funny is
sure.
So basically about 2 Novembers ago, I want to say, I came together with some guys. I said, I'm happy just doing my podcast, doing the Opinions and Beer podcast. But if these outsider guys, a backyard company was like, oh, y'all should come back. We want to do stuff with y'all. We want to collaborate. We're down so many people. It'd be cool to have like this fun collaboration with you guys that used to do it for so long. And And I got everyone around. I said, hey, we had like a little meeting. I'm like, if we do this again, we got to do it for real this time. And we have to work towards like doing this legitimately and, working towards like something bigger than just the backyard. And it was just a few months later, we purchased the ring, and then and now we're already doing live shows, and it's and so hopefully it just keeps snowballing from there.
No question that I have a feeling that it will, as we are speaking with wrestling star, the Psycho Morgan, who is with the Sadistic Wrestling Federation, which returns coming up here February the 26th, just 4 short weeks from today. He's also the host of the Beer and Opinions podcast. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. We are here on Sportswire Radio, speaking all things related here to the Psycho and his journey. And I'll come back to the Federation in a second. I'll come back to the podcast, but I wanted to ask, because I always ask this question to any wrestler that comes on, any athlete that's come on here in the past 4 years that I've been doing this in Sportswire Radio, and Matt Royale actually stole my thunder. Matt, you actually could do my job, because I was going to ask you, when did you get into wrestling, and what kind of made you want to go out there and be in this kind of crazy business that we're all a part of, it seems?
Okay. I hate wrestling.
Okay.
But I've been doing this for 16 and a half years, I guess. 16.
So you don't watch wrestling then at all?
I do.
Okay.
No, it's a weird statement, but
That was very weird. It reminds me, I don't know what kind of music you're into, but there was a singer for a band called Queensryche. His name was Jeff Tate. And one time they asked him, they said, well, who are some of your favorite bands? And he was a heavy metal singer, right? Very operatic heavy metal singer. And he basically was like, I don't like heavy metal. I like the Thompson Twins. You're singing, very metallic songs, and you make a statement like that. That reminds me of what you just said. I mean, basically, you're wrestling 16 and a half years, but then before that you said you don't like wrestling. So, I mean, you have to elaborate on that.
So it's kind of weird. I actually kind of just read wrestling. I watch the pay-per-views.
Okay. So you watched the Royal Rumble yesterday, obviously,
yes,
right?
Yes, I watched the Royal Rumble. I watched the pay-per-views, but I just kind of for the most part, I just read it. Like I'll go.
But what inspired you 16? Were you a wrestling fan 16 and a half years ago, 17, 18 years ago that said, you know what? I want to go out there and go get beat up for a while. I mean, there has to have been some interest, no?
I guess so. I mean, there's always. I think I have more interest in the characters performing the wrestling than the actual.
Okay.
Than
that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, you have a character. I mean, I could see that. I mean, but I mean, that almost reminds me. I'm assuming you took maybe theater or performing arts in school. Maybe that led you to a little bit more of a charismatic presence. Then I guess kind of you enjoyed more of the storytelling aspect.
Yes, but yes. I have an odd look, man.
This is interesting.
My belief system is very odd. So like I really like 1940s wrestling.
Okay, so is that pre-Gorgeous George? Pre-Buddy Rogers?
Like, I want it's weird. Like I like the theater of it, but also just like I kind of like the story, like stories being told in the ring, or like when people pretended that it was real still.
Yes, well, that I do agree with you on that. One thing, and I want to give a shout out to Casey Jack Bradley, another young trainee that's tuned in. But I will always say when somebody says, oh, it's fake, and then they go out there and get beat up, and then, they actually have to go out there and take that punishment. I mean, it ain't fake to me. I mean, to me at least. I mean, maybe there's an outcome that's predetermined, but in terms of what actually happens, that activity, that to me is actually pretty real, no?
No, yeah. Yeah, I'm just more of a fan of like bear hugs and things like that. I'm not a fan of.
So you're a fan of the long bear hugs where the fans have to wait for the big comeback, and then you get the big punches, and then you kind of get that whole headlock, the sleeper. Maybe somebody gets put in a submission, and they have to. How long do they wait till they can get out of it? You're into that kind of stuff, more or less.
Yeah, actually, kind of.
There you go. Well that's you're one of those guys that I would imagine then that probably enjoyed the what do they have those, and it was in the South, was it the Mid South that used to have the 60-minute time limit draw? You probably liked like some of that type of content, no?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. 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 That makes sense. So there
But
was never a favorite wrestler or a moment that said, "Hey, I want to go out there and try this." Then,
no.
okay. So then,
Maybe like guys like Sting, and the classic, like the kids like the Sting, the Undertakers, the Canes, things like
well,
that.
those guys were a combination of telling stories and being athletic. I mean, especially Sting. I mean, Sting was very athletic, and even the Undertaker. The Undertaker would,
Yeah.
walk on the ropes, and you would see him move around. He would come off the top rope sometimes. I mean, so the Undertaker definitely was very athletic. And Casey wants to praise you on the Cyclops glasses. So I have to ask then. I mean, what inspired you to wear Cyclops glasses?
Well, I used to have some pretty nice, expensive shades, but Mike Grizzly snapped them in half, so now I have these fucking
Ooh.
Cyclops glasses.
Well, that's not good. Why did he snap them in half then?
Well, because I was talking crap to him, and
Well,
then and then he snapped my shades, and then I pistol whipped him, and so that was messed up probably. But
oof. I almost don't want to ask why you pistol whipped him.
well, because he wouldn't give me the information I required. I was trying to I was trying to figure out where the kingdom was. It was a whole ordeal.
Okay, all right. Well, that's certainly interesting. I haven't had somebody yet tell us that they pistol whipped somebody, but hey, you never know on Sportswire Radio. I mean, there's plenty of stories out there. So, I mean, you're in this 16 and a half years. So I'm going to ask you another question, which kind of follows up to what Matt has said, and we'll come back to some of the current stuff you're up to. But I mean, how do you feel wrestling has changed since from when you started to where we are today? How about that?
I think you know what, I kind of did mention a little bit of that, but I think I don't think I don't think wrestling's changed. I think just the fan base has changed, and
Okay.
who we're performing for has changed, and I think wrestling used to be, oh man, I like that wrestling, Stone Cold Steve Austin, that was good. But now it's kind of like the weird emo, very super skinny comedians and stuff.
Yeah, I mean CM Punk for a while, for example, who was when he was briefly the AEW champion, though, and he was champion for a year in the middle of the decade, the last decade that took place, and
Well,
go ahead.
well, wrestling used to be, it's these people that are like, oh yeah, that wrestling, it's real, it ain't fake. But now those guys, they went over to UFC. They're like, no, this is real. I don't like that wrestling stuff. It's fake. And so the new crowd is like, oh no, we know it's fake. So just do extra triple backflip, things that, would actually, that aren't actually practical to do in a fight in a ring, and nothing that makes it realistic. It's all just it's just all over exaggerated. It's extra exaggerated now.
Well,
Like,
it's funny you said that because a couple of them have told me, well, you don't. Everybody says I got to do the super move, I got to do the big extra move, but what winds up happening is you've complicated the whole process, and in a lot of cases, you actually wind up hurting yourself. Most importantly, and Matt wants to say, is that a shoot?
what?
About what you just said about basically talking about how certain wrestlers have been typed. Then you talked about UFC and then the back and forth where people like this, people didn't like that. And then
Oh
Casey
yeah,
Jackson
that's why
had
I'm
to follow up.
the fan base has changed, and now the fans are becoming wrestlers. Where it used to be this tight circuit of people who just they became wrestlers and forced to get through, like getting beaten, like Undertaker, all these guys that they get forced through hardships and stuff. But now it's all fans of wrestling, and so no, if I was a wrestler, I would do the Canadian Destroyers 5 times and stuff like that. And
But a
so
third wrestler that's actually used that move as basically a reference as to kind of basically talking about some of the things that have changed, which that I find very interesting. And Casey says, I saw wrestlers like Johnny Gargano, New Day, and Zelina Vega doing cosplay inspired gear at the Rumble. Do you think pop culture is more popular in wrestling these days, especially towards younger fans?
Well, it has to be. They are trying their best to captivate any audience because the audience is it just isn't there. Like even I don't know. The audience has gone away. Like I said, the audience is there's no longer an audience. There's just people who want to be wrestlers. That the audience is just, oh, these guys wish they were you. And so they're gonna like type on the internet of all the things that they would have done. They wish they were the writers of the show. They wish they were owning WWE. And so the cosplay and stuff and then like all the extra things that they're doing is just sort of like a way to, entice a younger crowd that maybe hasn't been on impression yet to know that they want to be a wrestler, or they're trying to force them to become fans.
Okay, and I do have a comment from last night's guest, that is the new Messiah, Nicholas Crenson, who was with us in our post-Royal Rumble reaction show. And he says, did someone say Destroyer's Big O driver? Meaning you mentioned it, so he's probably very curious, Mr. Nicholas Crenson.
Oh, yes. I mean, it's probably fine to do if you don't kick out of it. I don't know. I don't know. It just, yeah, I just like finishers to be finishers, and I like I like big moves to stay big moves. I think there's a famous quote from I want to say Ric Flair or somebody. Someone was talking about a really good match he had, and he goes, "Go count the bumps." He goes, "Go count how many bumps I took." And
it's funny. Yeah, I think I did hear that from Ric Flair, and I think Jeff Jarrett even said that. I think I was listening to Jeff Jarrett maybe a month and a half ago talk about the fact that you can do more sometimes in the ring with not even making a move. I think he had used the line that I think one match he was in, he had one move in like 6 minutes, and yet the crowd was still more captivated than the guy that was what you just said, doing the 3 or 4 different, complicated, crazy, death-defying moves.
Well, yeah, because the average person can't connect with death-defying moves. They can connect with the emotion on people's faces, and that's probably the biggest part. It's another big part that's missing in wrestling these days, and that's why a guy like Roman Reigns is probably getting over for so long, is because what is he doing? He's mostly emotive.
But what did he do last night? Listen, the main event. Listen, he was basically for 5 minutes. You were waiting for Roman to do something. Yeah, and he had the crowd. He exactly what you said. You were waiting for that moment, but he was building it. Whether it was Sammy going to hit him, was Sammy going to hit KO, and you were waiting for that moment. So that's a fair point. I have a couple of comments. Let me try to get to different people. Nicholas Crenson says, I can agree with you. Making big moves stay big moves. Matt Royale says, would you say that's a bad thing, though? Surely all that just brings the business together. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, what do you say? Bad bingo?
So would you say that's a bad thing, though? Surely all that does is just brings the business together, referring to like some of the different things here in terms of like the different almost wrestlers being fans of themselves and kind of what you described, how we've gotten away from some of the stuff that maybe 20, 30 years ago worked, and wrestlers have a different mindset from what you were describing.
The only way for wrestling to grow is to I guess you need those performances, I guess, to bring in the next generation of wrestlers. Like, oh man, I want to do that or whatever. But you're not gonna bring in just the crowd. I don't know. I don't know.
And he refers to it more about fans getting more involved and wanting to be in the business, and he's basically saying, is that a bad thing, you think?
I don't know. No comment, I guess.
Okay, well, I mean, this is what we go live on Sportzwire. We have wrestlers from all over the world, people from all over the world. I know you do the podcast. We'll talk about that in a few minutes, but this is what happens. People ask questions, and they're interesting questions, and you have some interesting opinions. That's why you are the host of the Beer and Opinions podcast. But Casey says wrestling has changed. In the 80s, it had flashy, silly characters, kind of the cartoon era, right? Popular characters to the Attitude Era and the Extreme Era. Yeah, kind of the Attitude mixed to ECW era. And then the Ruthless Aggression. And now the PG era. It's evolved to what's worked for the fans. Same on the independent scene. Do you agree with that statement?
I think wrestling was sillier, but people believed it. Yeah, I don't know what to
Well,
say.
can I tell you why I think they believed it? You ready for the answer?
What you got?
We're on the internet, right? We're speaking about wrestling, right? 40 years ago, people couldn't talk about it. They could only talk about it amongst their friends. There was no internet. There was very little cable television that covered professional wrestling. You watched it at whatever time you watched it, and that was it. There was no Facebook. There was no Twitter. There was no Instagram. There was no instant reactions. I'm from New York, right? And even up until the early 2000s, right, just before social media, right? If you watched a wrestling show, there was no talk radio on pro wrestling. There was no Busted Open. There was no chats like this or live shows. There was no YouTube. There was no nothing. You watched it, you talked amongst people, and you read about it, whether it was in the PWI, if anybody knows what that is, or the different companies' magazines. Do you think that that's probably a big part of it?
Most likely, I guess, but that's why you just have to. That's why the show has to just adjust to aiming at kids. I guess. I mean, the adults know what's going on, but who's coming to
Well,
your
your
show?
show coming up on the 26th of February. What's the majority of the crowd going to be?
Oh, I have no idea. I know our first show was kids, and here, so let me give. I guess here's like some backstage stuff of like the reactions of that show. Okay.
Yes, give that to us here.
All right. So we had a match where, and this is kind of where some of my philosophy is coming from. We had a match that we all knew was going completely wrong. Okay. We all knew in the back, this match is going completely wrong. It sucks. It's going over time. They don't know what they're doing anymore. Like they shouldn't be out there. They shouldn't be in the ring. But so like we were like freaking out. Like, everyone was freaking out in the back. We need to do something. Blah 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 blah. But then a few days later, a guy in the store was talking about that match that his kids loved it. The kids were getting involved, chanting this guy's name. The kid, they're. I can't wait for you to do the next show. We're gonna bring our kids to the next show. That's they were excited. The kids had fun. You're trying to you're enticing the parents to bring their kids again. The parents. You have stuff sprinkled out everywhere, and so but the parents is what brings them back. The adults get bored quick
Because they have low attention span.
exactly, and so but if like the adults see that their kids are had fun at the show, they'll say, oh, when the next show comes, we'll go again because that's something for them to do. We can, do, especially at like a restaurant. We did that at a restaurant. I guess I'll see what happens whenever we do it at like a non-food event or whatever, a place that's just like a.
But you know what? Listen, you had to have been motivated regardless because you had that many people there. I mean, you had eyes on you, so it's still you wanted to give off strong impressions. Let me get to another comment from the new Messiah, Nicholas Crenson, who, by the way, is from our friends over at Wrestling Championship Entertainment, who also are a huge part of things in the wrestling scene in the Midwest, a little bit near you in Wisconsin, Appleton, Wisconsin, that is. And he says, anytime I plan on a match with whoever I'm working with, my main goal is to tell some sort of story and try to suspend the disbelief of whoever watches.
Yes. And like if you can get like, I don't know, anyone under 12 years old, 13 years old and under to believe that everything that's happening in that ring is real, then I think you've grown your audience. I think you've made an audience.
And that's the goal then pretty much for you then.
To make an audience. I want I guess my goal within Sadistic Wrestling is to have that middle audience, that like to create a brand new audience, because honestly, some of our guys aren't, and this is probably a shoot, but some of our guys they aren't good enough to be seen by any wrestling critic in the world. Okay.
Well, I'm going to plead the fifth on that. I'm going to plead the fifth on that because there are people out there listening to this, and I know that there are a lot of wrestlers.
No, and they know, no. We've all had. Trust me, like we are very fucking hard on each other. Especially, I mean, yesterday I had a 5-hour conversation that like basically guys thought that we should have 7 matches of 2 of the same people because no one else deserves to be on the card. Like that's
So
literally
can I
what
ask? So here's what I'm going to ask you. Then I would imagine you're the locker room leader then because of your experience, correct?
correct.
So are a lot of guys going to you to ask for that advice? Because that's obviously one of the ways you're going to learn about some of the things you had just mentioned. No, so are wrestlers
Oh
in the
yeah, no,
company going to you?
they're all improving. You know, they all improve. You know, it's like I said, just everyone's just they're very harsh. They're kind of like just harsh critics. And they're getting harsher as the closer our next event comes. They seem to are getting a bit more intense as time goes by because I think they just want the shows to be perfect or more than perfect. But and that's a good goal to have. I mean, that's obviously that's the goal to have. Are you right? You want every show.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, I was always told, and I've done a number of different things in my life. I'm doing this for 4 years. I have a background in politics, and I've done other things. And I was always told in life, if you were thinking about something and you were nervous and you were intense, that was a good thing because that meant you were actually working hard to the goal that you had in mind. So, I mean, that's actually a good thing then if they're feeling that.
No, it's good. That's why I'm not like be careful of their feelings and stuff like that. I'm not trying to shut nothing down. I'm just saying,
Sure.
I'm just saying what like the backstage tension is like right now in SWF is just like everyone is just.
And is that because it's a new and Matt Royale's from Wrestling Appreciation Society? Their first show is taking place on April the 29th, and they might be in the same boat. We're going to bring Matt on here in a couple of weeks, probably in about 2 weeks from now, Matt, depending on your schedule. The week of the 13th, we're going to bring you back on. I mean, but in a way, is it also because you guys are a new promotion, and when you have new promotion, something new? I mean, first impressions are what
No, yeah.
sells. You know that. Go ahead.
No, yeah, 100%. Yeah. No, I'm completely aware, but I do trust our booking process and how we and who we pair up together. And I do trust it that they will put on an entertaining show for the crowd. And so the best like my best hope is that people are entertained, enjoy themselves at our show, and come back. That's my personal goal. If we do better than that, more than perfect, then that's icing on the cake.
Well, let's certainly hope that happens, and I do have a good feeling about that here, and certainly we're looking forward to February the 26th, just 28 short days away here from the Sadistic Wrestling Federation returning, and Psycho Morgan will be a huge part of things here, and want to give a big shout out to some wrestlers that are tuned in because I reached out to a couple of guys who are also wrestling in nearby companies from Wrestling Championship Entertainment. One of them is Adonis Felios, and Adonis has been out there, so I have to ask you, I mean, what are your goals for 2023? I mean, we talked about the Wrestling Federation, the Sadistic Wrestling Federation. Do you want to wrestle in other places? I mean, have you wrestled in other places outside the state of Texas? I mean, just for those that are listening and watching, because we do have some wrestlers out here. So go ahead.
So we've been stuck in a corner for quite some time, and but we've been slowly branching out. We just went out to West Texas Underground and did some stuff with them. We got plans to go out to Breakout Wrestling. They just started back up, EBW, and they're doing live shows now, and they have a really awesome production. In fact, I'm almost jealous. I'm jealous of their production, like the things they're doing and stuff. It looks so professional. I'm like, damn it, that's too professional for. But we're gonna be working with them, and hopefully we branch out even more. I've reached out to quite a few companies, but like I said, we've been in a corner, and so we're kind of, even though we've been around for quite a bit, we are the new kids on the block, and we're having to be treated as the new kids on the block. So we're having to just gain everyone's respect.
Well, I think we'll certainly do that, and I mean, in a way, it is a challenge, but I mean, you seem like a guy that's up for a challenge, so I have to think. And I know that
drove I think that was like an 8-hour trip to go wrestle in this in all the way across West Texas, like Odessa. We went into Odessa.
Wow, I've heard of Odessa, sure.
Yeah, And so it was fun, pretty brutal.
But they say though, but the old adage is, I've spoken to wrestlers about this because we've had so many on, that those 8-hour rides or those 5-hour rides, they actually kind of, in a way, make your career, make the journey, because that's where you learn kind of the moxie of a person going through this. No?
Oh yeah, no, I feel that. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't stand after I was sitting in the car for so long. My
Oh, I'm sure. I can only imagine. I haven't been in a car in the last, I don't know, 10 years, no more than like an hour and a half. So I can imagine 8 hours. I'm like, I have to ask a dumb question. I mean, do you go to a rest stop to go take a whiz? I mean, do
Oh
you go
yeah,
to
I mean, but yeah, it's like around hour 5, I guess took a rest, and
or there's no, I guess there was no carpooling where I think you'd have guys take turns driving. It was just you straight 8 hours then.
oh yeah, it's just me driving these people around that no one knows how to drive. They know how to drive, but I don't I don't know if they have licenses.
Well, that's here nor there. But I mean, you're driving 16 hours total, 8 both ways to wrestle a match. I mean, mentally, I mean, what is that like almost? I have to say that's really got to take some real moxie, and you got to be that dedicated, I have to imagine.
Oh, one of them's pretty pissed. One of them's pretty pissed about it. But I believe in the idea that of what we're doing as far as like, reaching out to these other guys, and in fact, 2 of the guys just reached out, and one of them's coming down for this event. Secretly, it's a secret. I'm not gonna say which
Don't
one.
tell us, please do, because you know what? We have so many people come on at this point. I
Yeah,
know that the word will
and
travel. So whatever you do, don't tell
but
us.
I feel like we made a good enough impression over there that they straight up said, like, look, if y'all are only 5 hours away from us, we're already driving 5 hours over here. We might as well drive 5 hours to you guys because you guys were awesome. It's like, okay, awesome. So,
All right, well, that does sound pretty cool. I mean, I have to say, I mean, I give anybody credit for doing something like that, and you got to respect somebody that has a passion for that. And you and everyone else that is doing that definitely does that. And if you like what you hear from us when it comes to Sportswire Radio, do give us a like on Facebook at Sportswire Radio, YouTube as well, and 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can listen to all of our great content on sportnarium.com/player. And I'll be back not once but twice tomorrow. I'll be back here 7:30 p.m. British Standard Time with pro wrestler Jake Carnage. Jake hasn't been in wrestling for a while, but he wants to talk to us here, and he's got some things he wants to get off his chest. So it could be almost just like you here. It could be, I have no idea what to expect, but we're going to find out. And then I'm back covering soccer. I'm covering men's soccer at the college level here in Long Island, a suburb of New York City, with the Five-Town Sound men's soccer coaches Ettore Morelli and Brendan Wells. Both guys played in the NCAA tournament. One of the guys, Coach Morelli, is actually in his school's Hall of Fame. So we'll figure all that goes out. Plus, I'll be back here coming up, I believe, Wednesday night with a guy who's a really big deal. And I'm allowed to announce it now because we're going to make a formal video over tomorrow night's show. But Vito Fratelli. Vito Fratelli has been all over the place in Mexico, Southern California. He's a world champion currently, and we look forward to that. And Matt Royale has, before I get to the podcast, which I do really want to get to, Matt says, what other companies have you worked for?
Oh no, yeah. So no, I guess I've done stuff with WAW, which is like not Waco, but it's War Action Wrestling. And then
I think I've heard of War Action Wrestling, actually.
Then we just did stuff with West Texas Underground, and Breakout Wrestling was there, and we've talked with them. We're going to be doing stuff with them soon. But like I said, we have been in a corner, and in fact, we kind of what started off this journey was we did reach out a few years back. We reached out to a local company.
Okay.
And they pretty much told us that it'd be an insult to the other roster members if they let us perform in their ring, and so that kind of sparked like, well, fuck, I guess we'll just do it ourselves then. And sure enough, now they're kind of they've seen our Bullfish show, and they're kind of knocking at our door. So
I mean, listen. If it doesn't work somewhere else, you try and do it your own and blaze a trail. I mean, that's how it always works
And
For all
so
the trailblazers. So that's interesting. I mean, listen, if at first it doesn't succeed, you try it a different way. You get through the door anyway, right? It doesn't make a difference, and I guess we'll certainly figure all of that out here. And I mean, also talk to me about the podcast, the Beer and Opinions
yeah,
podcast.
the opinion the opinions and beer podcast that we've been doing. We're about at, I think we're at 302 episodes in or something.
Wow!
Episodes in.
Congratulations.
It's we do it. We used to do it once a week, but with the wrestling stuff, it's kind of pushed down. We're probably going to readjust the scheduling to like once a month or something like that.
Okay. And what do you guys talk about for those that are listening and watching here?
Oh, we drink a new craft beer every episode, and then we just
wow.
talk about gibberish.
Okay, so do you guys talk wrestling? Do you talk sports? Do you talk movies? What do you guys normally talk about for the 300 plus episodes out there that people can go check out?
Well, we do talk. Some episodes are wrestling. Some episodes are like radio, like just like games or just like news of the day and or random topics. Communism.
Sounds like what I've been doing for 4 years. I have a background in news, and one of our friends who's tuned in, Anthony Finkel, knows me from a little bit back in the Brooklyn political world. I mean, that's kind of my background. I've done news. I've done college sports, as I mentioned. I've obviously done a lot of wrestling the past 2 years, which has always been my passion since I'm a kid. And then we do some other things mixed in. So it sounds like something that would, I think, be up people's alleys.
We do a handful of interviews and things like that.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, Anthony Finkel would like to applaud you on the Cyclops, either from the future or secretly an X-Men. Was that an inspiration on the Cyclops for those that are going to continuously check out the Cyclops? And do you wrestle with the Cyclops glasses in the ring? Because I feel like somebody's going to want me to ask that.
I take them off, like I pretend I'm in slow motion and I take them off.
Okay. I also noticed with your wrestling jacket on there, it almost reminds me a little bit of a kind of a longer version of what Scott Hall used to come out with in the NWO Wolfpack. Talk about the inspiration for the ring gear.
Oh, so I bought this from. So this is my podcasting jacket that became a wrestling jacket.
Okay.
I guess I need to let me explain that. Everything's I have like deep lore. You have to like ask me about my deep ass lore. Everything has lore. But so pretty much I was doing the podcast in a wig and like in these really expensive shades.
Well, in 20 years from now, I might be doing it in a wig, right? When I lose my hair, right? I'll have to pull off the wig look.
Well, we didn't really see anybody, but like we went and we did our first in-person interview with a rock band, Wednesday 13, and they were like,
oh, I know Wednesday 13. Wednesday 13, that was the Murder Dolls, right? That was Wednesday 13.
Yes.
Slipknot as well, right? That was affiliated with Slipknot and the Murder Dolls. I remember Wednesday 13. Yes, I do.
Yeah,
so
we went and interviewed them, and I just didn't want to look like myself. I wanted to leave an impression. And so I just I started wearing a wig on the podcast, and I put this jacket on that I bought to be a supervillain for a fake movie. And so the idea though is that I got called out by WAW, like they were saying, the Sadistic Wrestling should come back out of hiding or whatever. And the idea was that I took the wig off and oh, look, Opinions and Beer is actually the Psycho from Sadistic Wrestling. And so now I'm just continuously in this outfit.
Well, did you find when you did, and you know what? We'll actually all say, Anthony Finkel says that's an MJ Thriller jacket, and he also says we're all metalheads. Yeah, Anthony Finkel has a background. He was in a band as well. He played in a couple of bands here in the New York area, and then I interviewed a guy that Anthony played with in a band that wrestles for House of Glory, which you probably have heard of if you're a wrestler. And his name is Chris Urban, and he was a singer for a band, and he was into that stuff. I mean, naturally, do you see a lot of crossover for you in terms of local bands and kind of, let's say, Sadistic Wrestling Federation or other place that you've wrestled in?
Oh, kind of. I mean, What do you mean crossover? What are you
Like in
saying?
terms of just maybe because I've actually interviewed some wrestlers that they've used local bands to play their entrance music or kind of just some crossover and promotion, different things like that. So I'm just curious, actually, now that you
Oh
mentioned
yeah. So
some of that stuff.
in fact, as a way to promote our live shows, we did a Halloween festival where we set up the
Okay.
ring. We set up the ring in like the middle of downtown at this Halloween festival in Silsbee, Texas, where Mark
I know.
Henry.
So I was about to say that. Yep, that I know very well. The
That's
world's
where our next
strongest
show
man.
is. Our next show is in Silsbee, Texas, and
Have you asked Mark Henry to come out?
they want to wait until we've
The-
grown.
okay, yeah, because he won't bother if it's like if it bombs, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
probably the
exactly.
deal.
So, but the city council, like, we're actually being booked by like the city council, and
Wow.
they have his number for like special events for Silsby. Like, he'll come out to do like the
Okay.
weightlifting stuff and whatever. But I'm not holding my breath. But that's just like a card that they've shown me. But I don't know.
Well, it's a big. I mean, it's a big card, though. I mean, it is. I
Yeah.
mean, it is Mark Henry. I mean, he's a WWE Hall of Famer. He works for AEW. He was in the Olympics. I mean, he is. I mean, for the last 25 to 30 years, I mean, he is one of the biggest wrestlers of all time. So to have him potentially at a show,
Yeah.
I
But
mean, that would be.
these are politicians telling me this, and so
Well, I mean, speaking from experience, I have a background in dealing with politicians. They'll tell you something, and then there's a good chance it won't happen. And but certainly, look, if a politician speaks to Mark Henry, I guarantee you, Mark Henry will pick up the phone. But I can't guarantee you that he'll be there. But that is an interesting crossover there,
But
and
we did this
right.
Halloween show, and we had like a bunch of bands perform in the ring, and that was like really cool. And it just helped. I think it really helped with the Bullfish audience, to be honest, because a lot of people came from Silsbee to see us wrestle at like 3 cities away, and so
I think that's a good idea, and I know that some wrestling companies that we work with, and again, we are here with wrestling star Psycho Morgan, who's going to be in the ring coming up here February the 26th. He returns in action for the Sadistic Wrestling Federation. You can find out more information on Facebook for the group as well. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. I think that's a good crossover because there's a couple of companies that we work with. One particularly, GT Ministries in the UK. They do some stuff a little bit with local bands. They do some stuff with religion. Another company we work with, KOW Knockout Wrestling in the UK. They work with getting their tickets sold through a record store, a local record store out there in a club venue. So I do think that in order for a lot of these small companies to do well, you have to find some type of genre, niche, or some place that you can kind of work to kind of, hone your craft or increase your audience a little bit. And, there was something, and before I come back to some closing thoughts and also talk about a few more things on the Federation, I know that you touched upon something which I found was curious before we went on the air, and you touched upon it for a couple of minutes, is to the fact that there's always sometimes a friction between backyard wrestlers and professional wrestlers. Now, you've been doing this for a long time, and we had a couple of backyard wrestlers who've also been veterans. We had on Stephen Havoc. You might have heard of him. He's out in upstate New York. C2K, Courage to Kill, also from upstate New York, 30-year veteran, and a guy, John the Rock Jackson, who does some acting, directing on the side, done some stuff in the music world, and he had a background in it before he branched off. And I mean, how do you feel when, let's say, professional wrestlers say, "Oh, backyard wrestlers are daredevils," or they disrespect the craft? I mean, you're a veteran, you've been doing this a
so
while. Go ahead.
so what I'm about to say may contradict a previous statement, but I'm going to say it anyways with knowledge of it. So while wrestling has changed from the 60s to now, the mentality of these companies have not changed. So there's still this cult mentality of like, this is real, where no, where we're all where where they try to like, where if you do go to a school, they try to pump your head for like, they pump your head with the no, that was all BS you were doing, whatever. Like, but it's like we're not like sitting there like getting hurt ourselves, and things like that, and like doing it for.
They take $2,000-$3,000 of your money and say,
okay, oh, we might use you one day.
Yep.
They're gonna take your money and we might use you one day. Or no, this one company, oh, y'all never traveled. This is before we traveled. Y'all never drove 10 hours. Y'all never slept in a gym. Oh my God. It's like, yeah, we're not fucking retarded.
No, I mean, it's a big thing.
Part of my family. I'm sorry, it's a family show, but that was just like
No, I get it, because you know what, I've heard that there is a certain mentality with certain wrestlers that almost say, well, if you
no,
didn't do it this
and
way.
and that's what's actually hurt the yard scene. In fact, I don't know if you remember this, and I don't. I've been
I
trying
might,
to.
because I might, because I've been covering it and I've read up on it. But go ahead, tell me what
Okay,
you're
so
about to
no, you
say.
probably have. You probably know. It was a pretty for me. It was a pretty big scene. But do you remember Cam?
Yes,
He,
yes, I do.
do you not feel like he killed the yard scene when he sold out?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I did. It's funny you said that, because I knew this was going to come up. I swear I knew
How'd you
this was going to
know?
come. Just because when you spoke about it before we were off the air before we went on, I knew for whatever reason I had this vision. I was walking. I was walking. I went out and bought a new phone, as I mentioned, and I was walking home today, and I said he's going to bring up something about somebody selling out, and I think I know who he's going to talk about, and I really had this vision, and there you go.
Well, because right now, so like there's like a bunch of like backyard chat, chat groups, and they're like, oh, let's all get together. Like, hey, it's never been done before. All the yard companies coming together and making this big old giant show. And I'm just like, I've been doing it for 16 and a half years. And I'm like, no, it's been done before. It's just they ruined it. Like they ruined it, like I
Well, everybody wants to kind of almost the forbidden door, right? Everybody wants to break the door. They figure if we all partner together, we'll get this massive following because everybody's being combined. But the challenge is, it's
Oh, well,
almost like, yeah.
they were doing it though. They were doing it.
Yep,
And
I
then
know.
he went and got, the actual training. He went to a training school and they pumped his head with the cult mentality of, oh, all that stuff you're doing with all those people is garbage. It's not legitimate. You have to be legitimate if you want to come here. And now no one even knows who Cam is anymore because he listened to the garbage cult.
Because you know what, that's almost like if you learned. I'll give you the example. We're joined here by another backyard wrestling legend, C2K, of course, Mr. Courage to Kill It. We just mentioned here. You know what that's almost like? If you were going to learn to play guitar, right? And you learn by copying a CD. People don't really use CDs anymore, but when you were growing up, they said, because I played guitar, right? And they always said, well, the way to learn is you put the CD in and you play to it. You figure it out, and then you go back later on, you look at the tabs, and then you kind of figure your fingering out, right? So if you learned as a backyard wrestler to kind of learn a little bit some of the do's and don'ts, and then you learn, you kind of got an idea, and then all of a sudden you go out and have to go back to wrestling school and they start you from scratch. Well, I mean, I lost out on all I learned, right? I knew all the fingering, like with guitar, I learned all the fingering, learned all the licks, but then they said, nope, that wasn't any good. So you basically, all
Well,
that time, all that
yeah.
maneuvering, you lost. That's the same thing, no?
Well, it's because we didn't learn it the way they wanted.
They wanted you to learn it.
We learned it a different way. We crafted
exactly. But that's just like learning with a CD.
Yeah.
That's the difference between those that learn with a guitar instructor, or you spend all your money going to a music shop and learning from somebody who played. If you learn playing to a CD, you learn by the ear.
Yeah.
I never learned how to read notes, but I just learned by playing to the CD. It's the same. In a way, it's the same thing you learned in a backyard. You learned in a tent. You learned on a trampanzee, whatever it was.
Yeah, and I want to speak more on the we really did craft. We've just crafted our own style on how to stay safe, staying safe and whatnot, and honestly, like so far, like we've got like fresh people, like people who we have like some new talent, and they've like never they just started watching wrestling because they want to do it now, right? Like they've never even, they don't know nothing about wrestling, they don't know the names of moves or anything, and they're about to put up like one of them literally put on one of the best matches I've ever seen. You know what I mean? Like, because just how we sat there and worked with these guys and trained them in our own special way on how to do the matches and how to sell and how to take bumps
Right.
properly. And I don't know. It's just like there's other ways to do it than the way that you're forcing us to pay you to tell us to do it.
But you know what? And you know what though? Look, at the end of the day, there are plenty of wrestlers that learned and from the backyards. But unfortunately, like you said with Cam, there was that whole big thing there. But if you're learning to do something and you're getting successful at it, and if you want to learn different things later on, go for it. But if you're doing something in a way that's constructive, why tear somebody down? That's the way I look at it. What do you think?
No, yeah. I mean, there's a place though for wrestling school. I'm not trying to tear down wrestling school or anything like that. There's a place for some people they need it, or some people just can't even be taught.
No, I think I don't want to tell anybody they should not go to wrestling school because I will lose a lot of credibility. But
no. People, like if you can afford to shell out the $2,000 to learn how to.
absolutely, 100%, no question. And I think there's a lot of value in going to the right wrestling school.
Yeah.
Don't go to a place that's gonna fleece you, and then you learn nothing from it. If you can go to a place where you can learn from a respected trainer, how can I put a place like, let's say, what Johnny Rods here in New York had, the Dudleys have an academy, Team 3D Academy, Amazing Red with House of Glory. That would be another place. I mean, I believe what's his name, Nunzio, I think from ECW has a school. So if you learn from the right place,
Yeah.
I think you should absolutely go to a school. In the UK, we have in GT Ministries, we have an academy. We have in the LWF an academy. I would highly encourage going to an academy, or a training school. They call them an academy in the UK. But the point is that if you're going to learn somewhere and then nobody tells you anything, but they just took your money, well, that's not learning either. So I think you have to pick and choose. You have to pick the right spots. But I thought it was important to maybe talk about some of those things that you have experienced, because again, you've been doing this a long time. Like C2K's with us, he's been in it since 91 he started backyarding. I mean, so do you have footage from back when you started out back in the day? Because we had Stephen Havoc on, and he started in 98, and so
we have some footage. We did lose, like we used to a lot of our footage we used to put on DVDs and pass them out to schools and stuff.
Okay.
And that started off as straight yard, and then we did become a trampoline fed for a while, and then when we realized that was ridiculous to be a trampoline fed. No offense to trampoline feds, but
yeah, I won't say who, but somebody gave me footage of a trampoline match, and yeah, I mean it.
No. I'm fully aware of it. That's what and it's kind of funny when you have to fight your own guys. Like, can we do it on the trampoline? No, dude. We're doing it. We're just gonna do yard and stuff. Okay, you have to just.
Well, that's why I like Wrestling Championship Entertainment, because they actually have the whole setup. They have the ring, they have the whole, and the guys that wrestle there actually are trained professional wrestlers who basically, they have family, they have the responsibilities, but they're doing it like part-time seasonally. They're doing it, but they're trained wrestlers, which is they've traveled. So it's, to me, I look at them and I say that's a good example. And I have a comment here from somebody I think I know, and he wants to remind me, in the UK, of course, Nonstop Action Wrestling are a great place of people to train. They're an up-and-coming company that we've covered quite a bit, and a lot of their wrestlers are training. Their head trainer is a guy, Tommy Dillon, a veteran wrestler who held their world championship, and he's helping some of the wrestlers in TNT Explosive Wrestling. Yes, TNT has been a major company as well. Ignition is the company where RPD is the champion. So, yep, all great stuff there. So, we've got about 10 or 15 minutes with you. I want to be respectful of your time because you're a busy man. You get ready for autograph signings. You're getting ready for press conferences, interviews, all that stuff. And so, I mean, where do we go from here then in 2023 with Psycho Morgan?
Where do we go from here? Oh God, that's the worst question. No, I don't know.
Where do you want to go? I mean, have you held world titles in your career? Do you want to hold more world titles? And I mean, how about that?
I think once I settle, I think there is a Opinions and Beer Network Championship that I'm eyeing, but I do need to settle some scores first with a few people before I think about title shots.
Okay, so you're taking the route. Usually, most people come on here and say, "Yeah, I want a championship right away." You're actually saying, "You know what? I want to just go right and settle some scores, and then I'll worry about championships." All right, so that's fair. I
Yeah,
mean,
I'm more about making sure people suffer than holding any championships, if you know
all
what I
right. Well,
mean.
I mean, you know what? Some wrestlers are like that. I mean, listen, famously, there are some wrestlers who are better without the title than with the title. I mean, so that is a fair assessment. I mean, so let me ask you another question. Was there one or two moments in this journey so far that have kind of stood out most? You said, hey, you know what? That's a moment where Psycho Morgan really, I just wish I could just relive that over and over and over. And one or two moments stand out most?
No, not really.
Okay.
I'm always looking for the next high, I guess.
Yeah, but some
Nothing really.
people, you know, what was funny is I've asked this question, and not just in wrestling, and I've asked this question to whether it's politicians and athletes and coaches, and some will give you that answer. Well, I'm looking forward to the future. That's my next one or two moment. And there'll be other people
Yeah.
that I had a coach famously, and I don't want to chew him out because I actually don't like him. He gave me like a 15-minute long-winded answer. Then after we got off the air, he wanted to talk about 10 more minutes of why he should have included more. So I appreciate the fact that you were open and honest with me.
Well,
So
moments that I like just being able to just other people's reactions, being able to
okay,
live inside other people's reactions into things like that maybe I'm not even a part of, and so
that's
that's
a
kind of
high.
like
That's a high for you then.
yeah, like just certain thing. Like if I could tell you things that stuck out to me like recently was
Yeah.
we did this promo. We had a promo on the screen of a character, Vincent Von Crow,
Okay.
and there was like a voice, like a little child's voice, and you could hear them say like, "Ooh, that's a bad guy." It's like they knew. They knew. I don't know what it is. Like our storytelling was seeping through. Like they knew that this is we presented this guy as the bad guy. The kids, they knew he's the bad guy. They never seen this guy before in his life, but they know. They looking at him. They see how he's talking to this mask and being like a weirdo. He's like or like are people wanting to take pictures with the broomstick? You know what I mean? We, but because in this last event, Super Danger did wrestle a broom, and,
Well, the old adage was Ric Flair could wrestle a broom for 60
yeah.
minutes and still have a great match with it. So maybe Super Danger was trying to emulate what Ric Flair, they say, could do.
Well, he was forced into. He was Rich Fortune told him the way he's running things was messed up, and he better have a good match with. And then he picked the broom, and he went and had, and people were taking pictures of the broom like it was a like it was a commodity. People booed. I came out and I slapped Super Danger, and I got booed because I ended the broom match. They wanted to see the broom.
Were you expecting to get booed?
No, I was coming back for revenge. I guess this
That's why
bad
I
guy.
was like, boy,
This bad
you had the Soraya treatment in AEW. She comes back from an injury and she goes out and starts feuding with Dr. Britt Baker, and she actually is the one that kind of gets booed, and now they actually kind of aligned her with Tony Storm and went kind of the other way that I think people were expecting differently. So I mean, I guess
But
hopefully.
it doesn't hurt my
Yeah.
feelings that I was booed. I'm there to hurt people, and that's probably
Okay.
something to boo
Well, you
about.
look like a guy that would hurt people with those Cyclops glasses. You look like a guy, and speaking with you, that I would be very fearful of getting in the ring with you. That's why we certainly hope that we did okay in the ring with you tonight on Sportswire Radio, because you are an accomplished host. You were
I hope
certainly
I did well with you.
I think you did phenomenal. I would love to talk more about the Sadistic Wrestling Federation between now and next month in the future, because we love covering wrestling on Sportswire Radio of all sorts, and we love speaking with different and new people, and I would include you as well into that. And I certainly hope that the future will include that, and we'll certainly talk about that off the air. And I want to give you the floor now. I want to give you some closing thoughts, anything that you'd like to plug or share, or anything else you want to say for people that may listen or watch this.
I am the Psycho. I perform in the Sadistic Wrestling Federation, where rules are a gimmick, and we can't do it without you. Get it? Because we spell it with a U instead of an A. Anyways, go check out our Opinions Beer Network on YouTube. We've got crazy interviews with Michael Jai White, John Heater from Napoleon Dynamite, Michael Gross, all kinds of celebrity interviews.
Wow, Michael Jai White. I got to check that one out.
We've got all kinds of wrestling. If you want to check out, if you want to check out our old school stuff, or Super Danger having a love affair with a tree, you can check out the Psycho 180, Psycho 180 YouTube channel to check out our old school stuff.
Well, the Michael Jai White one is probably going to be, you know what I'm going to do? I'm probably going to watch that on YouTube after I eat, because I'm very curious. He was always one of my more favorite tough guy actors. He made he made a nice niche for himself in that direct to video lane with the action movies. After he was in Spawn, he was Spawn. He was in Spawn.
Yeah, he was Spawn.
Yeah, he was Spawn.
Black Dynamite.
Yep. Yeah, he was a very good, very, very good actor in the direct-to-video lane. So that's a neat one. I would not have expected that one. And then you had John Hader of Napoleon Dynamite, two total opposites. Boy, he went from Michael Jai White to Napoleon Dynamite. Wow.
Then we interviewed some random fucking people.
And you said you had Michael Gross. Now, Michael Gross, we talking Family Ties?
Trimmers, yeah. Family Ties, Trimmers.
Wow. That's another interest. Boy, you really ran the gauntlet there. Holy shoot. Wow. You had Michael. I got to find the Michael Jai White one. I'm going to promise you I'm going to watch that after.
What's strange, our number one interview was Jan Broberg. I don't know if you remember her from the documentary Abducted in Plain Sight, but it was very popular on Netflix for like that short period of time, and so it got pretty popular.
Well, how did you do it before I let you go? How did you do with Michael Jai White? Did he get you new followers and such when you did that?
Well, he was actually he was when we were still interviewing people via like
Skype.
Skype.
I was in it. How long you been doing yours? 4 years? 5 years?
5.5 years, I guess. 5 years.
I've been doing it 4+ years, and I remember I started out doing it on Skype. I was on the days of Skype, and you had to hold the phone up with somebody called up, and you had to get the car mount. Yeah, I was around during those days.
But, he was one of our first interviews. We did Boba Flex. It was a band, and then we did Michael Jai White. And we kind of did Michael Jai White because Kel Mitchell turned us down. Because
that would have been a great one.
Wait, he turned us down. Why did he
turn you down?
Because of the beer.
Because he became a Christian, right? And he got all freaked out, right? He became a born again Christian, because everybody knows Keenan, but Kel actually became like a born again Christian. That's why you really haven't seen him. He does
now he does like orange soda for Christ or something, and like all kinds of stuff.
Wow.
But
he turned you down. Wow, that's a bummer. That would have been. I'm assuming you grew up like me watching Keenan and Kel and all that.
Oh hell yeah! Kel was my favorite. I bought the
and Good Burger. Welcome to the Good Burger. Can I take your order? And he turned you down.
Did you watch that last movie he did where he loses his wiener?
I mean, we can't. Well, yeah, I've seen it. Yes, I saw it.
That's so hilarious. He's going around looking for it. Did you steal my wiener? Did you steal?
No, I almost feel like, did you guys interview one of the Power Rangers? I feel like you probably asked for that. Did you guys ask to reach out?
No, we never got the Power Rangers. We got oh shoot, who do we get? We got freak. What
was Napoleon Dynamite like? What was he like to interview?
Oh, he was relaxed. He's pretty. He was a cool guy. He was funny, and he was probably the funner of them. In fact, Michael Gross was probably the least fun interview.
Yeah, because he's old. He's like Michael Gross. That would have been
and his publicist wouldn't let him get off track.
Well, I said this on the Sportzwire. We have a group chat on Twitter, and one of the co-hosts on my Friday night shows for sports, had asked me, so, you interview all these wrestlers. Is there somebody that you don't like? And I was like, well, I don't want to say anything, but there is, when I could relate to the publicist part, because I interviewed a guy that played for the New York Mets when they won the 1969 World Series, and another guy who won the 1986 World Series, Ed Hearn and Art Shamsky. Art Shamsky was famous because he had 4 consecutive home runs in like 1967. They were like my most least favorite interviews I've ever done, because they were like old farts, and they were like, I got 30 minutes, you got to go. And Ed Hearn was like lecturing me, and I feel bad for the guy because he's got like kidney issues, health issues, but it's like, dude, don't lecture me, man. Like I get it. I feel for you, but
I tried to pitch him a Trimmers movie where the main character, like, because he, like, I don't know if you watched the last Trimmers movie.
I mean, I remember him. Yeah, but I remember them vaguely.
But I try to pitch. I'm like, okay, think of this: the next Trimmers movie. They reopened the Valley, and the two sheriffs is Michael Jai White and Stone Cold Steve Austin. And the publicist started shutting me down. He was
yeah. You know what? Well, when you have a publicist involved, there's usually like a set. There's usually a set number of questions, number of time.
They don't like the fantasy casting.
No, they want it to be straight to what it is. When I've interviewed politicians, and I understand it, but when you do these celebrities, sometimes it's fun to do. But I think Michael Jai White, before we go, and Stone Cold actually did a movie together. They're in a I watched it one time like 2:00 in the morning because I don't sleep, and I know you know what I'm talking about. There you go. Yeah. So listen, never say never here, but definitely, where can we find all the Beer and Opinions podcast shows, like the Michael Jai White, Michael Gross one, before we go?
All the interviews should be up on
YouTube.
But the Michael Jai White one, I don't think it's on Spotify because Spotify changed their formats to where they only accepted MP3s, and back then we were doing Wave still. We were,
Well, I'll make a deal with you when you come back to do your podcast, because I actually am a radio station and I play radio. If you do have an MP3 or an MP4 of future shows, I'll play them on my dial. If you like some extra listeners, I'll be happy to play them. So if you go back into it, I will play your shows, and I will get to listen to the new episodes and some of those other ones going forward. So if you like that, you want some extra attention, I'm happy to do that. And the Michael Jai White one is on YouTube?
Yeah, that one's definitely on YouTube, and it should be on iTunes and just everywhere except Spotify.
Okay, well, I don't use Spotify, but I use YouTube. And I have it on my Xbox, so I'm going to watch that tonight. So, my friend, this has been a lot of fun. I want you to come back on. I want you to talk more about the Sadistic Wrestling Federation, anybody else that's out there that we can help promote. And really enjoyed it. Don't be a stranger. And I'm looking forward to hopefully watching you and the rest of everybody else go out there on February the 26th.
Woo! Hell yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we were here with wrestling star Psycho Morgan, who's going to be in the ring here on February the 26th at the Sadistic Wrestling Federation's next show. It's their second live show. He is also the host of the Beer and Opinions podcast. You can find on YouTube, iTunes, Anchor, also most places where you can find a podcast. You can also go to their group on Facebook as well. The Sadistic Wrestling Federation also has a page. Please support these great outlets. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. If you are on sportnarium.com/player, you go back to your regularly scheduled programming here in a little while. And if you're on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, as I pointed out, I'll be back here twice, both ironically at 7:30 p.m., one at British Standard Time, the other one Eastern Standard Time, with wrestling star Jake Carnage, and then the Five-Town Sound men's soccer coaches Ettore Morelli and Brendan Wells. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in here on the number one global radio station that is Sportswire